On March 11, 2011, a chain of events kicked off the coast of Japan that would unleash not just one disaster, but three catastrophic interconnected crises. This wasn't a single event. No, this was a cascading failure that became one of the most complex and just devastating events in modern history. To really get a sense of this scale here, just listen to these words from Japan's prime minister at the time, Naoto Kan. He didn't compare it to another disaster. He compared it to the entire post-World War II history of his country. That tells you everything you need to know about the gravity of the situation. So here's how we're going to walk through this. First, we'll look at the moment the Earth literally broke. Then, the unstoppable wave that followed. After that, the nuclear crisis it triggered. We'll take a hard look at the human and economic costs, and finally, try to understand the lessons learned from the ruins. Okay, let's dive right in. The whole thing started not with water, but with the ground itself, in a violent, 6-minute-long upheaval. That number right there, 9.0, that's the power of the quake on the moment magnitude scale. It is, to this day, the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan's history. And get this, it's one of the top 5 strongest ever measured anywhere on the globe. Just incredible. So what made it so powerful? Well, this slide explains the engine behind the whole disaster. This wasn't just any old earthquake, it was a mega thrust event. Just try to picture 2 massive tectonic plates, the Pacific and North American plates, grinding against each other for centuries, building up pressure, and then they just suddenly rupture. That violent thrust unleashed an almost unimaginable amount of energy. And look how fast this all happened. At 2:46 p.m., the Earth starts to shake. But just 1 minute later, 1 minute, Japan's amazing early warning system flashes alerts all over the country. For millions of people, that single minute was a life-saving head start before the most violent shaking even arrived. The sheer force we're talking about here is it's mind-boggling. This quake didn't just shake a country, it physically altered our planet. Japan's main island was literally shoved 8 feet to the east. The planet's mass was redistributed so much that it actually tilted the Earth's axis and made our days shorter by 1.8 microseconds. So the ground has shaken violently, but that was just the first domino. All that immense energy from the seafloor rupture was transferred directly into the ocean, creating a tsunami on a scale that is just terrifying to think about. And this right here is what makes tsunamis so sneaky and so deadly. Out in the deep ocean, the wave is moving at the speed of a jetliner. We're talking 500 miles per hour, but it's only a few feet high. You could be on a boat and not even notice it pass underneath you. But then, as it gets closer to shore, the shallow seafloor creates friction, slowing it down and forcing all that water to pile up and surge vertically. And this was the result of that surge, 40.1 meters. That's 132 feet. In the city of Ofanado, the wave was as tall as a 10-story building. Just a colossal wall of water that completely overwhelmed even Japan's world-class sea defenses. And the wave didn't just hit the coast and disappear. Oh no, it was an unstoppable flood. In some places, it pushed 6 miles inland, just sweeping away everything, cars, houses, entire towns, turning the landscape into what witnesses horrifically called a tsunami soup of debris. And this is where the cascading crisis entered its third and maybe its most feared stage. As the water pulled back, the natural disaster began to trigger a technological one, a full-blown nuclear emergency at the Fukushima Daiichi power plant. Let's walk through this chain of failures because it's so important. First, the earthquake hits, and the reactors automatically shut down, just like they're designed to. So far, so good. But then, the tsunami arrives. It pours over the seawalls, floods the entire plant, and, this is the critical part, it knocks out the backup diesel generators. With no power, the cooling systems failed. The reactor cores, with all their immense heat, had nowhere to put it. They began to melt down, creating explosive hydrogen gas. The fallout was catastrophic. 3 different reactors went into meltdown. A 12-mile evacuation zone was declared, forcing more than 200,000 people to flee their homes. The crisis was ultimately rated a level 7, the highest possible score, putting it in the same category as Chernobyl and forcing a global conversation about nuclear safety. So now, we have to take stock of the aftermath. And the numbers behind this tragedy, well, they're just heartbreaking. According to official numbers, almost 20,000 people lost their lives, more than 6,000 were injured, and over 2,500 are still listed as missing to this day.
The disaster left hundreds of thousands of people homeless, tearing communities apart.
The economic damage was also completely off the charts, with costs estimated as high as $309 billion. This became the single costliest natural disaster in recorded history. I mean, just look at it compared to Hurricane Katrina. It completely dwarfs it. But in the face of all this devastation, the world really stepped up. It was an incredible outpouring of global support. More than 128 countries and dozens of organizations offered help, sending rescue teams, supplies, and money to aid the relief effort. So, finally, what did we learn from all this? After a disaster of this magnitude, how has it shaped our understanding of the world and the risks we face? Well, it sounds strange to say, but there was one small silver lining, and it was a scientific one. Japan is covered in sensors. The sheer amount of data captured from all these GPS stations gave scientists a look inside a megathrust event like they'd never had before. And that data is still helping us refine our models and improve our forecasts today. The Fukushima crisis sent shockwaves through the entire global nuclear industry. This quote from the head of the IAEA really says it all. The crisis forced a complete worldwide reevaluation of safety protocols. Countries everywhere started doing stress tests on their own nuclear plants, fundamentally rethinking how we manage nuclear power. And that brings us to the ultimate lesson, and it's a sobering one. You have to remember, Japan was arguably the most prepared nation on Earth for this kind of thing. They had the best warning systems, incredible building codes, massive seawalls, and they were still completely overwhelmed. It's a humbling reminder that nature can always throw something at us that exceeds our worst-case scenarios. And it forces us all to ask that really tough question. Are we ever truly ready for what might come next?